Elementary music teacher friend, you love what you do, but you might feel unappreciated and, in fact, unseen some days. You may even feel like you're on a music teacher island and just want to connect with other music teachers who can relate to both your struggles and wins when it comes to teaching elementary music. I get you and understand completely the feelings you're having. That's why each and every week, the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast will provide you with solo and guest episodes that will help you realize you're not alone in your music teaching journey. Throughout each episode, my goal is for you to be able to walk away with actionable steps and ideas to help you feel like you're ready to take on the new week with whatever challenges may be thrown your way. Hi, I'm your host, Jessica Peresta, and I'm so glad you're here. Whether you're at home, in your car, in the shower, or wherever else you're listening, grab your cup of coffee or whatever other beverage is nearby and listen in to the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. Well, hey friends, welcome back to the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. I'm so excited to be talking to Courtney Powers today. Her and I virtually met at the International Music Education Summit. We were both presenters, and after attending her session, I knew I needed to ask her on as a guest. She talks about music education in a way I've honestly never heard someone talk about before. And she makes music education relevant to her students, which is the goal, right? And I love these lessons she talks about where it is making classical music relevant to your kiddos by creating hip hop pieces and adding beats and rhythms and making them musically relevant for kids today. And we're going to talk a lot about that as well as many other things, but I want to tell you a little bit about her because she's amazing. And so Courtney is the music director at South Philadelphia High School in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She's originally from a rural town in Kansas, and she plays French horn. She played all the way through Berklee College, and she graduated from Berklee in 2007 with a bachelor's degree in music education, and from Villanova in 2015 with a master's of arts in education. She's been teaching 12 years in a wide variety of different school settings, and she has taught choir, band, guitar, ukulele, drama, general music, you name it. She's also a VH1 Save the Music grant facilitator and 2020 Grammy Music Educator semi-finalist. She's amazing. This interview is amazing, and I cannot wait for you to listen in. So let's go ahead and get started. So how's it going?
It's going well. I'm actually in Kansas.
Oh, okay.
I'm visiting Kansas from Philadelphia. So it's interesting to see what is going on here for education too, as well as what I just left Philadelphia with. So I've only been here like 3 days, but I've already had some really, really great conversations with some parents of students in high school and middle school. So it was very interesting.
Yeah, that's good. Is it like a conference you're at? Or
no, I'm visiting family.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
no, I'm
gotcha.
just visiting.
Oh, just like conversations. Yeah. I gotcha.
Yeah, and just conversations with some old friends, some friends I went to middle school with and I was in band with, and even and some old high school friends that have kids in just different districts. And like there's some counties in Kansas that have no COVID. So for those counties, it's kind of like, should they open? Should they,
I know.
in all these rural areas with nothing going on. And then I come in with the counter of, look at what's happening in urban, like look at the inequalities that's happening and what this has shown. And, in the urban atmosphere, it's going to be way, way, way different than what's going to be for rural.
Yeah.
And you can't have a blanket thing for education, and especially with music education. I mean, we have some affluent districts that, yes, we can do a traditional band model and space all the kids out and all this stuff. Where I teach, it's going to be difficult when I can be rostered 35 kids.
Yeah.
And my room is small, or I could spread them out to multiple rooms, but then I can't be everywhere at once. So it's just going to be interesting how the flexibility will have to work within education. And I think the most thing that like hit the kids was the Black Lives Matter protest.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we
Right.
had, because it was right in their backyard. I mean, I ran into a student at the protest, gave him water and snacks, and said, "Good, don't get arrested."
Oh,
That was about the only advice I could give. Like,
right.
and like when I had students calling me and like messaging me on Instagram, and they're like, "Miss, it sounds like a bomb is going off," and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then they sent me a video of people exploding ATM machines. And it sounded like bombs. There were people walking around the streets with bats in different neighborhoods, threatening students. We had a student die of gun violence.
Oh my gosh.
He would have been at school. If we would have not been COVID, he would have been at school and not in West Philly at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But yeah, some of those things, and we don't get a check on the students when a traumatic event happens. Like, in the classroom, we would be talking about COVID. In the classroom, we would be talking about, if someone died or a family member's death or anything, we would be there as a community for the students, and we're not able to be there. So with Instagram, at least I'm kind of closer to them because I can read their story, because they can choose to block me on their story. Everybody can choose.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what? If they don't block me, they want me to see it. They want attention. So I will go through there. And if I see like somebody's like posting some, just in their feels or something like that, I may give them a cold call, just video call them real quick, just check in, see how things are going. And a lot of the kids really respond well to that. Some of them answer just with the ceiling, but all I see is the ceiling. I'm like, can I see your face?
Yeah, right.
But it's really nice and nice to engage students in that way. And be able to check in on their socio-emotional status. And like, they're sending me videos of them practicing at home.
I love it.
They're wanting critiques. I saw 2 former students were holding a live talent show.
Aww.
And then going over the results of the talent show. And then I came in. This was like at 12:30 at night. I pop in because it's live, and I'm like, what are these girls going live? What are they doing? I'm thinking, what are they doing?
Right, you're like in the middle of the night. What's happening?
Yeah, like contestant 15 Luke, blah 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 blah, and I was like, and they're like, Miss Powers, blah blah blah, and then I'm like typing to them, and I was like, what are you doing? And they're like, we have a talent show, and why didn't you come? We've been live for the last 3 hours. And I was
Oh my
like,
gosh.
they just do it on their own. But like stuff like that, we should be able to celebrate, because kids are finding a way to adapt to still be together, where we sometimes forget that they've grown up with this technology. So they're like, all right, well, I gotta see who I gotta see on sports or whatever. But they have all these like spam accounts and alternate accounts anyway, where they are themselves.
Yeah,
online,
right.
they're not their. And if you are an educator that hasn't been watching students, I mean, we're talking like 2nd grade, 3rd graders that have all these accounts. That says something about their psychology and what's going on in the classroom and what's going on, and how we are taking it as adults. Like, we aren't used to this. We are social. We're very, very social. And they're very social in a different way.
Right.
They still need that human connection. That is, I mean, of course. But I think they're able to adjust quicker because they're like, oh, yeah, I get to talk to my friends all the time anyway. Like, whatever. We talk all the time anyway on FaceTime or whatever. So, and I think making music for them is going to be kind of the same way. If we because I was head band director in Earth, Texas, which is tiny town, a 1A school. And when I went out there, like, it was just traditional band model, just regular band, director gets up there, do your thing. And then I was like, give me a fun song that you guys want to play in the stands. And what was it at the time? Poker Face, Lady Gaga. That was the poppin' song. I was like, okay, easy enough. Listen to it. Go arrange it, like 3 different parts, like not hard. Yeah. They thought they were the coolest kids ever. And then some of the audience is looking over like, what are they? This is not the
Right.
theme song.
Right.
This is not and
normal.
that
Yeah.
a little country town.
This
This is
isn't
a little
Sousa.
country
Like, what do
town
we
and
do?
yeah.
I love
And
it.
I had them do the Jackson 5, and it was the first time we had like color guard and stuff like that, because I was like, yes, we're a small school, but let's play something fun, and it's gonna be colorful. It's gonna be fun. And because I instilled that trust in those students, I took 3 of them to state, and we had never been to state for UIL. Like, if people aren't familiar with that, it's the cream of the crop for Texas. Yeah. And I took 3 kids down there. They hadn't been in state in over 30 years. And just because I gave them that arrangement, then we did Bulls on Parade. We did that at the spring concert. So that was
I love it. No, that's awesome.
These are like what I would, but I was getting them to play other traditional things too. Okay.
Yeah, but you have to bring them in with what they enjoy first, Yeah,
well, they enjoyed that, but then they were like, "Oh, she can make songs that we know on the radio." And I was like, "Yeah, like just tell me a song, I'll go and I'll arrange it." And it's super easy. It's super easy for me to do that. And I'm super fast at it, which I'm happy with. Thank you, Berklee. To be able to arrange, okay, boom, 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 boom. And that's what I took to the classroom. But when I taught in Texas, then I went to Pennsylvania, and I was still taking that same model of, okay, these kids really were well with this, and I could still get all of my traditional stuff done and get everything done, but they were having fun and creating too, and there was all different parts going on. So my first job in Philly was at an alternative high school for students that were in placement, just got out of jail, or who knows, Right. So I needed a job. So I was like, okay, whatever, I got to take it. It was very, very interesting. I mean, like the class size was maybe like 6 kids, but they all needed attention. And so we were able to like really dissect some hip hop stuff, because that is something I could get them into. And then I could be like, oh, look at this sample, blah, blah, blah. And we could talk a little bit about the sample. And then I got them so interested in me that I got them to read through The Wizard of Oz, like the play thing, and sing some of the stupid songs. And I did air quotes there. The more nerdy, I guess I should say, the nerdier songs. Yeah. And they were into it. And then I had a kid, I put it, this one of the first things I put on my YouTube page was this kid at that school. Like one kid was like playing the guitar, and then I was like, all right, I think you should do that rap that you do to this really, really hard beat. I was like, do it to this guitar. It's like, I can't do that. Da, da, da. And then when he did, it was awesome. And then I was like, okay. Then my wheels are turning about, okay, like my next job. So at my next job, I worked at a charter school, K-12. I had upwards of 60 kids per class.
Wow, that's a shift, huh?
Yeah, 60 little kindergartners staring at you.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot.
It was a lot. The physical education got 2 teachers. Music, they were like, she can handle it.
It's just music. Yeah.
I did, and it was fun. And I engaged them to do all sorts of different activities. And then I was able to I was doing like the TikTok dance moves for chorus when TikTok was not a thing. I was like, these little movements so they remember the choreography and they remember the lyrics. Just a fun songs. Then I got to Northwood, where I really, really amped up my hip hop, because I had a lot of kids that were really in depth and in tune with the genre. And so my first couple of years, I was there for 4 years. So the first couple of years, it was fine, just little stuff. And then when I started introducing the modern band model from Little Kids Rock, I was able, for God's plan, I was able to give them out the music. And this is after 2 years of prepping this. So this is year 3. I'm able to give them out the music. They can be in small groups. I'm saying you're taking the root, the third, the fifth of the notes, and they already knew what all that was. And these are 3rd to 5th graders. And then I would be like, there would be one kid on bass, and there'd be maybe a dance crew outside of like 3 girls dancing. And my videographer, I'm like, think of how you want this video to be, all this stuff.
Awesome.
So I have every kid actively engaged, because some of those kids, like they're not going to be successful in a group. And I know that. So I'm going to give them that instrument that, hey, the kid on the bass, I'm like, you're going to go back and forth between these 2 notes. You focus on this. You are the only bass, da, da, da. I would have like 5 kids on the drum set playing different little parts using all of the drum. It doesn't have to be traditional.
Right.
This is in your general music.
Yeah.
Then so they had 30 minutes to do that. Then the last 15, we got it together. We played it through once as a rough cut. We're like, okay, like let's figure out let's do it again. And then that's where we did this, the God's Plan. It's been on a couple of my social media things where the kids are like jumping up and down and going crazy, because we had like a hype man, we had all these different things. And that was just created in a general music, these kids, just coming into school, into school, but they were able a band with their classmates every day. So that did jump in my numbers for my traditional band and traditional orchestra that I also had at the school. So it jumped the numbers because they were having so much fun at the elementary level with, oh, this is what a band is. Oh, and yes, I mean, it did sound a little crazy sometimes, but I always played electric guitar. I played lead to help us along in case we fell apart. But it was always like, we were able to just keep going, and they weren't just stopping. Because sometimes when I was like rehearsing band or orchestra and like it falls apart, everybody just stops. Well, in a live concert, you can't do that. So I was trying to teach them how to be live. Be like, okay, we've got the videographer, we got one take. If it messes up, we got to keep going. Like, where's our eye contact? Teaching them all those different skills. And then making sure at the end, like we had some unsuccessful ones where we had to, group it up, circle it up, and figure out, where did this go wrong? Right. I mean, I always knew where it went wrong, but I'm like, I want them to problem solve. Where did it go wrong? Like, and it's not about blaming. It's not about the blame game of like, oh, I'm blaming this kid. I'm like, well, we all were working together. Were we all working together? Were we all looking at each other? Were we giving eye contact? All of those things. And it was really interesting how well that if you're able to give them the space to have that voice. Like I had a little lion duct tape on it that we threw around as the talking piece. So anybody who had the lion, had to have that talking piece. I use that in orchestra anytime, because for the traditional band model that's like probably not happening this year, like you could really amp up the kids, creativity with, okay, well, do they actually know theory? Because my third, fourth, fifth graders knew how, okay, root, third, fifth, boom. And they knew how to find that. But are we teaching our traditional band kids that? Or are they just learning how to read music and be musical this way, but not musical in the different way of like really, really diving in? So I think we could use this time to really ask the band kids, like, okay, the arrangements of band stuff is super cute. They're cute. But I always saw them, I'm like, ooh, I need to add a singer. I need to add like a drum set. Yeah. Like some of the stuff that's not in there. So it'd be interesting if we ask kids, hey, let's listen to these pop arrangements. What would you add? And like you could do a lot of creative things to get kids really thinking outside of their traditional band. Because I didn't think outside my traditional band till I went to community college in Kansas. Yeah. And I had a very eclectic director, Gary Gackstatter, who always played guitar up there and was making us do weird things. It made me write my own French horn solo to be up on the balcony and play. And I was like, he is crazy. What? But with all that. And then now I teach at in high school in Philly. So I brought all of that elementary model to the high school, because my high schoolers that were coming in, I work at a community school. So it's not a performing arts academy. It's not, any of your academic schools. It is a community school. And a lot of these kids came from different countries that didn't have music, or they came from middle schools that maybe didn't have music, or they were only chosen to go into band or orchestra if they were successful in all their academic classes. And then they were able to have music. I just get them all, and I'm like, all right, what do you guys know? Right. Like every year with high schoolers, it's just like they walk in, and I'm usually playing some hip hop, some like I use the chill hop a lot, which is a YouTube channel. And it's just nice chill beats, and I let them walk in, and I don't say anything to them, and they're just like, where do I sit? What do I do? And I was like, I don't know. And like in the room is like all instruments set out and just seats randomly. So, and I just sit there and I watch them, and they're just like confused because I'm not giving them any directions, and they don't know who I am. And then turn off the music, and I was like, oh, hi, I'm Miss Powers. And they're just like freaked out because they're sitting behind something. Like we're talking like just random drums, drumsticks, cowbell, a bell, like just random items at this high school. I introduced myself, and I was like, all right, so we're gonna play something. And they're like, we don't play.
Yeah, we just got here.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, no. And I was like, all right, we're going to take it back to kindergarten. They're like, miss. And I was like, we're going to do Mary Had a Little Lamb. I was like, does anybody actually know how many verses are in Mary Had a Little Lamb? And so I started off my high school class with Mary Had a Little Lamb. By the end, like we had this kid rapping over the top of that. Bum, 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 bum. And we made it like it was a crazy arrangement. Because I was like, all right, well, now we have the little melody. Great. And they're like, okay, what do we do now? And I'm like, well, let's funk it up. Let's spice it up. And I had a kid rapping Mary Had a Little Lamb over the top of this chaos happening. But they loved it. They wanted to come back to class. They were like, okay. And then by then, it takes, 3-4 months to gain the trust to gain the trust of your student, because the students usually, they might have a preconceived notion about you. And yeah, they rightfully probably do. And then, yes, they're going to act out against you. One of the girls at South Philly, I gave the piano to, she hated me for 3 months, hated me. Like, every time she saw me, like it was attitude. I'm like, you're gonna like me, and I would just sing at her and like anything to annoy her. Like, because that's what I do with the high schoolers. Like I'm always like, oh, good morning, good morning. And then finally, by the end of me, after 3 months of saying good morning over and over to people in the hall, they're like, good morning. I was like, oh, thank you. Yeah. And it's not. Because they never get the good morning. But anyway, this girl, this is like month 3. This is like December. She's playing on my big piano because she sees another kid on an iPad using the piano thing where it like lights up the notes when it goes down. I don't know if you've seen those tutorials. Yeah. Like, yeah. And I was like, you know what? I was like, you like doing that? Great. Figured out this is the song we're doing. So he had already done the song. He was doing the Dr. Dre boom bum 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 the Dr. Dre sample. And so she was like, oh. So he taught her. I watched the whole thing. I'm just sitting at my desk, and like, because I have other kids like coming over with this project thing, and I'm just like, huh. And I'm sitting there, and he's teaching her. She gets it. And I was like, okay. She's playing it over and over in class. And I go up there, and then I play the bass line with her. Don't say anything. She's like, miss. And I was like, yeah, see, I do know. And from that point on, I had her trust. Then she was having trouble in 2 classes with some students in there and stuff like that. So I said to the teacher, I said, look, like her, she's a little rough, but she's coming to me and she's liking me and she's telling me all sorts of things. I was like, So if she can go get the work in your class, can she come sit out in my chill out zone? I had this like little cubby in my class for kids that wanted to eat lunch and basically sleep on this couch. It was right behind my desk, and I could always hear the conversations. They didn't think I was listening,
I love it.
but I was.
I
And
love
so
it.
she would be back there and do her homework and go turn it in and then feel safe. And so that's where I knew, I was like, okay, these kids are really, they just need a place.
Yeah.
So later on in the year, like this was January, February, and then March happened. But before COVID, I was staying after school probably 3 or 4 days a week, till about 6, because that's when our night school let out. The night school let out at 6, and then that's when I basically had to leave the building. And you know, I'm divorced. I don't have a family, not much going on after school.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, all right, well, I'll just stay and do my work or practice or, you know, whatever. And then when I go home, that's home time.
Yeah.
And so the kids would be staying in studios. They had 3 studios they could use after school. And I would always have my door open and I could hear them working. They would put up the sign saying recording, and all of this great stuff. They absolutely loved the freedom that I trusted them with, the freedom to be in there and make music.
Oh,
because I could pop in there whenever I wanted because I had the key, and they knew that.
Yeah.
They knew hi. I'm like, there's no noise. What's going on?
Right.
And then, you know, I got these little like Nest egg camera things. And I was like, look, you know, administration is very concerned that I'm not watching you at all times. Even though in a regular high school, air quotes there again, practice rooms, are there cameras in practice rooms?
Right.
You know what I mean? It was the same.
Yeah.
I found that super interesting. I'm like, okay, because there's 3 kids in here making music, you're worried.
Right. When you can hear them, that's what they're doing. Yeah.
You don't trust the girl because she is DJ Diamond, the manager. She's managing the boys because the boys can't figure it out. And, you know, and like, I was like, there's a whole system here, but I was like, all right. So I was like, guys, they don't trust you. I trust you. So like, this is what we're doing. So we put up the cameras and stuff. And I was like, it's on an iPad. I was like, I'll put it on my desk. I was like, I don't think I need to be staring at it the whole time because you're just making music back there. So calmed down administration, and because they had a good rapport with me and they trusted me, they were like, all right, miss, like, I know you have to do this. And I was like, thank you. Like, you know, and it was so sad the week COVID hit, like the kids were coming out, the group called Loyals, L.O.Y.L.Z, Loyals. Shout out. They were coming out with their EP, and they were like super, super excited. And so that Friday when we left school, not knowing what was going on for Monday, like they were going to release it the next Friday. So all of their equipment. And so like the weekend starts and I'm like, oh gosh, like how is this going to happen? Like, they're going to be freaking out. I'm thinking the 2 weeks that we have after COVID, they're freaking out. And then I got them their equipment. I was able to go into school it was Tuesday. It was Monday or Tuesday of that next week before they went shut down. And so I went in there and I asked kids on Instagram. I was like, hey, blah, blah, blah. You know, do you need equipment? And got a whole bunch of replies. And then I went around and delivered the instruments because I was just worried about 2 weeks. I had no idea it was going to turn into the foreverness.
Right.
Which I'm super grateful that I got it out to them when I did.
Yeah.
And I kind of acted fast because I was just like, oh, these kids cannot be without stuff because this is their safety, their security blanket, their safety blanket every day after school. I can't imagine their life without that. This is what just going on in my mind.
Yeah,
so,
right.
You know, that's where I've been at for, you know, this time, and just really engaging them on Instagram. I was able to, with my VH1 Save the Music facilitator grant, I was able to, we were able to interview Joe, Pink Sweats, Arnetta Johnson, a whole group of people that my students in Philly got to connect with Miami, LA, New Orleans, New York, Newark, all together on a Zoom platform to interview artists, which was an unbelievable experience for a lot of my students, because they could ask questions right to the artist. They finally, like, I guess, believed that, like, yes, we can actually talk to these people. They are real people. And they have funny stories. So it was really nice for them to see a human side of this during a time where we aren't really seeing humans.
Right.
And especially seeing, like, a side to a person that they might idolize or know of in this other grandiose way, and seeing them in, that one-on-one, like, oh God, like, it made it so real for them. So I really, really, loved that. And my classroom is all about freedom. It's freedom of expression. And especially, like, in South Philly, I have to use, like, a lot. So I'll have, like, this little guy in this ear in my phone, and, like, I talk into it, and then I go translate it over to Spanish, and then I will attempt Spanish back, which the student hilarious. But it made them, they were like, all right. They're like, Miss, you're trying, you're doing a good job. You're doing a good job. Because I was like, it was important for me to learn something, because a lot of the students, like, they're coming here working at their parents' bodega, taking care of family. Like, they just because they don't speak the same language doesn't mean anything. They're super hard workers. Everybody's a hard worker. Like, and for sometimes teachers, sometimes, like, will look at students sometimes like that and be like, well, they're not really trying that hard. Well, they don't understand the language. Think about, we have IEPs and all this stuff for kids who are dyslexic or anything like that. And we're like, learn the language. Well, they just came here. They're trying.
Yeah. Right.
It's a lot. It's a lot to be them. And it's sometimes we have to think of ourselves in their situation. So a lot of one thing I've done and kind of encouraged off of my first school, Edison, we did this walk around the community at the first day of school, not with our students, but just teachers, that we walked around the whole community, where the kids were coming from school. Yeah, there was needles, there was all sorts of crazy stuff. There were heroin addicts all over the place. And it made it real to the teachers who maybe don't live around there. Oh, this is what my kids are walking through every day to get to school. They're walking through all this madness to get to school, so they are safe and they know no crazies in the school.
Puts it in perspective. Yeah,
it does. It does. So I mean, I think that in a rural community too, I think, for like I'm in Wichita, Kansas right now. So if I lived in Wichita and I taught in Towanda, a tiny, tiny town, and you don't know the ins and outs of Towanda, how are you going to be a successful teacher if you don't see that? So it's made me dive in deep and explore more genres of music and being able to mix those together with what I already like to mix together. Like Spanish hip hop is amazing. And now I'm just picking up on exactly what they're saying, but like I have students who want to rap in Spanish. So I need to be able to help them articulate what they need in both languages. Because I said, if you can go back and forth between both languages, that's a double threat. And so like, encouraging them to use their language and their voice as power, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, I love all that. Your story is so inspiring. And those of you listening right now, I never even officially introduced you because I just wanted to let you go. No, because it was so good. I didn't want to stop you. And as you can see, this is why I wanted Courtney to be on the podcast, because I followed her on Instagram for a while now. And I can relate to a lot of your story. Never taught the high school level, but the way you connect with your students and you make music relevant to the kids you're teaching and you think outside of the box, I think is so important. And what you just said about you're not necessarily familiar with some music, but you dive deeper into it to learn about it. And I think that's where kind of I want to turn because I think that's where some teachers do get intimidated in when it comes to hip hop. Okay. Like, I feel like I'm going to ask you this because I want to know if you've told teachers, I know you even presented about this at the Music Ed Summit. And when you say something like, I use hip hop in my classroom, you get immediately probably a lot of deer in the headlights looks like, you do what? You know, because as music educators, like it's just even saying that sounds intimidating, because we're taught all the different teaching methods and folk songs and, you know, band repertoire and what do you need to do, you know, with the students. But what they don't tell you is every kiddo's not the same. Every school's not the same. And when you try something with these kids who could care less about that stuff, what are you supposed to do? Keep doing that or do what works for them? So when it comes to hip hop and bringing it into music education, I just kind of want you to tell the listeners some ideas. I know I've heard your presentation at IMES. It was amazing. So you do something where you do hip hop combined with classical music, and it's
yes. Oh, you want to talk about the Beethoven?
Yeah. Do you want to just share that idea so people kind of have an idea of how they can turn a traditional, you know, piece into hip hop for their students?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes. I love this, and it really it came to me when I was driving to work. Some of our best ideas come when we're driving and just like and I was like, let me try it. Let's try it. So we're all familiar with Beethoven's For Release. Okay, we got that. Beautiful. All the kids, that's one thing they want to learn that makes them super cool. Great. You can teach them all that, and third through fifth graders are excited about life. Then I was like, "Oh, you guys like Beethoven so much. Let's learn a little bit about him." And so I was incorporating always back to like Beethoven as a person. That Beethoven, he wrote that about a girlfriend, and that he may have had, he was this big, like superstar famous. So I'd think of him as, like Harry Styles or something.
Yeah.
Like he was a rock star before we talk about the craziness, he was a rock star.
Yeah.
And I made him super, super human. And I read the book Beethoven's Letters, because I wanted to get juicy gossip, because gossip of even that, like little tidbits of knowledge they really, really latched onto, because they're like, ooh, that's cool. He's not just a old dead white guy. He's he's a dude, and he's got. And I was like, yeah. And when I told them about like the when he went deaf, and we watched Beethoven Lives Upstairs, which the first 10 minutes they were like, this is stupid. And then they
starts slow, yeah.
Oh my gosh! At the end, they were all into it. I knew they would, because it's a great elementary movie. I'm not the biggest movie all the time person, but like that one, and it gave them a lot of context, story they could follow. So, in learning about that, the students were learning all different facts about Beethoven. They were learning all these different cool tidbits and facts. And then I played the Nas I Can sample. There's no lyrics in that. And that sample, he samples For Release. And there's a little girl at the beginning of the music video that plays For Release. So if you play the first, I think it's like maybe 20 seconds of the song, there's no cursing, there's nothing going on. But I was, again, this is third to fifth grade. So I was like, I'm going to tell you what, if you want to see the whole video, ask your parents. And if you don't, then you've seen the first 20 seconds. Because the parents all knew Nas I Can. I know I can be what I want to be, be what I want to be if I work harder. The tag is great. Tag is great. So we kept that tag. So a lot of the kids, we could listen to like that first verse and get down Nas's flow. And then some of the kids already knew all the song anyway. And so again, I just put it back on the parents. I was like, hey, I put the link on my website that all the kids went to and stuff like that. And they knew it was there. I didn't get any complaints. um, because I wasn't ever using it in class. If they were watching it on their own time, they're watching it at home.
I was going to say, when you mentioned the language part, I know that that's a question a lot of teachers have is, well, I can't use hip hop with my students because there's cussing, but you can always find clean versions of songs. Or like you said, you can use instrumental tracks. Like you don't have to use, and then like you said, if they are going to listen to it on their own, which a lot of them will, then you can tell them you need to ask your parents at home, but you can bring it into your classroom. You just have to be, what am I trying to say? Yeah. Have honest conversations with your kids about your expectations. This is what's allowed. I'm not letting you bring language, music with language in here.
So one of the great things, like with that, and we're going to go back to Beethoven in a second, but with what you said right there was Migos, Walk It Like I Talk It. Well, this guy, I can't remember his name right now. He did the Dr. Seuss rap of that. And I showed it to like 2 students and they're like, Miss, this is stupid. I was like, oh, we're doing it, guys. And then, so I made these kids do that. And so they did a parody. So you can always, the kids know the flow. So if you bring in a hip hop song and like a, I don't know, a Ty Dolla $ign song, and there's some cursing in it, they have to know how to self-censor. And that is a super great skill for students to gain, especially if they are wanting to become a rapper of sorts or something like that. They have to be able to sing their song clean. They have to, because there's going to be venues where they cannot curse. So like artists have to really, really work on that. So it's kind of like if you take the song version that's on the radio, that's already the radio edit.
Right. And
you look at it and you're like, it's still a little edgy. Take out those edginess and make the kids self-censor with either an instrument clap. Like you could do a body percussion there and the kids know what it is. So they're like, they already know. I mean, we're not hiding, like pretending that it doesn't exist is silly to me because we listen to the radio.
Right.
Like they're consumed with media. But anyway, back to the Beethoven. All right. Yeah. So these kids, so the kids like learned all the stuff about Beethoven. We're super excited about it. They thought he was super cool because I presented him that way. So we listened to the Nas I Can. And they got down that flow. And so we first started with the I know I can be what I want to be what I want to be. We started that call and response first. And then I was like, okay, well, let's like try to write a rap together about Beethoven using Nas's flow. And that's where like the kids came up with really, really great lines. I'm looking at a couple of lines. I guess let's see if I can rap it. Oh gosh. Okay. Beethoven's where I start. Born in Bonn, Germany. You know you gotta trust us. Out of 7 children, only 3 survived. His dad was really mean, so it made him seem he had to play the melody. When he was still a kid, both his parents died, and it made him cry. So he tried and tried. Then he went to Vienna, where he thrived. So they start off with talking about his like where he was born.
Yeah.
Out of 7 children, only 3 survived. He had to play the notes right for all nobility because I was like, this was a hard word for them to think of. So I was like, let's look up words for kings and queens. Like, let's dive into this. And they were super into it, super, super into it. So the next verse, let's see if I can do this.
I love this because this is great for any composer, like any composer of the month activity. You can, because the composers aren't relevant to the kids. They don't know they're like, oh, good. Another guy with a white wig. Good. Whosampled.com.
Look up any of your composers and you will find something where it's sampled either in a movie, in a commercial, in all sorts of different things. And Who Sampled is your friend.
That's awesome.
And it tells you exactly what part of the song is used and will take you to that part.
That's awesome.
Which is really, really cool. So I definitely think that is really good.
Yeah.
Okay, here's this part. Okay. We know about Vienna and Mozart too. You'll make a big noise is what they said about you. He always threw a tantrum and he made friends too. He studied violin with the great Haydn. Even though the student relationship failed, they both remained friends to the end. Moonlight Sonata and Fur Elise was written for all his mini queens.
Love it.
So, I mean, they're talking about like Haydn, like they're bringing in another composer and bringing in their relationship and stuff like that. And so it just really brings it together. And then here's the last part. He lost his hearing at the age of 28. He crafted masterpieces that will last forever. Symphony number 5, da 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 da. He wrote about the symphonies while he was going deaf. Symphony number 7 was his favorite. Trumpet almost every day. He heard the vibrations that made him sing. All about Beethoven, maybe you've heard, not the St. Bernard version. He's the real OG. And then they dance. But that's like, you could do that again, like you said, with any, and that took about a week where, we would throw up lines and I'm like, do you think that this goes together? Like, and then, it was a community effort. It was a community effort, but it was really, really nice. And they still remember it. They're in 8th grade now, or they're graduated 8th grade and still know their Beethoven. So
did each class write their own rap? Is that how you had them do it?
Together.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
This was how, it was, like I said, it was a huge effort. So I opened a Google Doc. And so for each class, first class was the first cycle through. I had 4 classes of like all the 3rd and 4th graders. So I had a class of 3rd graders, whatever. So the first class of 3rd graders came in, that we wrote down ideas, stuff that they could remember about Beethoven. I was not giving them any answers. They could go around the room and look, because I had posters everywhere and all sorts of knowledge in the room. And I'm like, the room, you may, use an iPad. I'm not telling you anything. Tell me what you know, and I'm writing it down.
Love it.
And so I did all the classes. And then we had this whole, list of things we thought we knew. And then we went through and I was like, well, that's kind of like this one. And the next class was like getting that list down. And then the next class was, all right, how do we wrap this? How do we get his flow? And so we like really studied the rhythms with the instrumental track. So I would listen to the first part of the Nas that you can listen to that is appropriate, and B da 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 da, that part, and the kids would get the rhythm sticks and we'd play the instrumental, and they would try to play what they thought the rap beats would be, so we could get different flows. Because our flow is not always the same as Nas. It's inspired by Nas.
Yeah,
right. Off, but but that's okay. Like that's what a hip hop homage we're paying back to him. We're using part of his flow, but we're also, flipping it around and doing something completely different. And so like by the fourth one, we start to really try to pick out lines. And that's where I helped them. That's where I was like, all right, well, here's our knowledge here. How could we flip this sentence around and really like focus on a sentence? So it was kind of like each class had a thing in each of the lines, in each of the stanzas. So like the first class, they had a part in all of it, and they all did, and they all kind of voted. Like we had some questionable lines, and we were like, we like it, do we not? And we'd color code that, and we'd have the other classes vote. Do we like this line? Do we not like this line? How would we change this line? And so I think it was by like after we were able to like, okay, I think we've got a final product. Let's dive into this and see if it works. Then we're able to record it and stuff. And I always record. If you as much as like I hate recording myself, it is very beneficial, and recording students and having student videographers are crucial. Let them use your phone if you have a good case on it.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
I let kids take over my Instagram for a day. So if I'll change my password. So I'll give them the password to my Instagram. And I can mute different things and go into settings. And so while they're at school, they get Instagram Instagram different things going on at the school. Like they try to like find something cool about the school or like what somebody's doing. And if it's not appropriate, because I have my phone too, and I can easily check what's going on immediately when it's posted. And if it's not appropriate, they know I screenshot it. I screenshot so much stuff. They know. I was like, oh, you actually posted this and you deleted it. What's this mean? What's going on? What's this mean? Because they do that.
Yeah.
I'm just a little too quick for them sometimes. But then I'm not quick enough. But but they like that. They know that I am aware of them and observant of them, which is super, super important to be able to do these activities that I've talked about. Like without the trust of the students, I would get eaten alive up there. And like I could not jump in month 1 and do something like this. No way. I could start maybe month 3 in, after you have your rules, you have your fun. In elementary school, I always had a prize box. I went to Michael's, and the kids responded really well to those, like a coloring book. And it wasn't like traditional, like, oh, here's a little prize. Like they were like, oh, this is a big coloring book, and I got it for 25 cents. That's what I wanted to do for them, because they really appreciated that. Yeah. And if they did not show gratitude, it probably was taken away. Or we had a discussion about, what is it? Why are you just grabbing that? Like, what, I'm giving this to you. I paid my money for it. And like, really, and this is like, we're kindergartners, making it real that I'm not just throwing it at you. I'm giving you this because you did this really good, blah, blah, blah. And always always going down to their level. I mean, and just making the eye contact is crucial. I can't tell you how many times, even like here in Kansas, because I like eye contact. I will give eye contact to babies because nobody looks at kids. Yeah. Nobody takes them as a little human. Like they're seeing stuff too. They're looking around too. Giving them that smile and look, they're like, I was noticed. Even because that's what we do as people too, as adults. But then we get babies, we're like, oh, we can't stare at that person's baby. Yeah. It's across the aisle. Right.
Yeah. Oh, I look at babies all the time. The mom doesn't even know.
Those simple little humanistic things and qualities that you can bring into the classroom make you trustworthy to them. It makes you a real person. I've cried in front of them. I'm not always saving my tears. Like if something, like it was like I remember super stressful day. It was like the play was going on and I was like overwhelmed. I was just like, I need a break. And my little lunch bell kids came in and I was like, guys, I can't do lunch bells. You guys can play, but I'm gonna cry for a little.
I need a moment. Yeah.
I was like, I just am overwhelmed. Yeah, I said, I'm overwhelmed. If you want to give me a hug, I'll take a hug, but I really just don't even want to talk. I just want to sit. And they respected that. And they came and gave me a hug and you okay, miss? I was like, yes, I have a moment. And it's okay for me to have a moment in front of them and be vulnerable, because then that shows them that they can do the same. Yeah. Even though I love it. I mean, I could run back to the bathroom and be like, okay, everything's okay, great. No, it's not. It was not okay. It was not okay. The sound system was great. I had no idea how the play was going to go on that night. Like, I was stressed.
But they need to see that human side of you. Yeah, it's important.
The urban kids, they need to know that you're real, because everything is so real in their life.
Oh my gosh.
It's very, very real. Like the way those students can a lot of times pick up on the body language. And like, if I'm, given an eyeball, I can control a lot with an eyeball. And a lot of teachers, I mean, we all have the teacher.
Oh yeah.
All right. I see you over there. And like these kids, like they want structure, they want discipline, but they're going to fight you for 3 months. And you've got to just keep your calm through that time and just keep, okay. Like I had just dance breaks. When I'm like, you know what? was like, everybody just stop. And they're just like, what's going on now? I was like, get up, we're dancing.
Yeah.
And they knew what was coming from me. They were okay with my surprises.
Mm-hmm.
And being okay with surprises is good for kids who always need very rigid structure.
Yeah.
Like surprises is like that first step to, yes, you can do something on your own. Like, I'm just surprising you, and everybody's getting up and doing it. So I guess we're doing it.
I don't want to be the only one sitting down.
Yeah, exactly. And that first start of the trust, I think it starts there, in that where it's like it's playful where you get to know kids' personalities.
Yes.
And even though if a personality may be like negative, like I had a student at Edison, he had just got out of jail. He was in jail for like 6 months or something for a crime. And he was a super sweet kid though, sometimes. He ran into my room day 2 of school, and they were like, don't talk to him, don't engage. And he goes and he's like, plays on the drum set and leaves. And I was like, what in the heck was that just came into my room? It was like a whirlwind.
Yeah.
So the next day I'm on the lookout for him. I'm like, okay, he's in here and bang on this drum again. I'm going to get him. So I'm at the door. He comes running in, and I go over, and he's like running, and he plays the drums. And then I walk towards him, and I just sit and listen. And then he stops like banging like crazy. And he's like, oh, you want to hear me actually play, miss? I was like, sure. I was like, let's see if you can.
Yeah, right.
He could really well. He was a great gospel drummer. And then I was like, yeah, you were pretty okay. I said, you might be good enough for some lessons. What do you think about that? And he was like, lessons? I was like, yeah, we have a drum teacher at our school. Like, would you like to take some lessons? He was like, I guess you think I'm good enough? And I was like, oh, yeah, I think you're okay. Even though I was like, oh my God, this kid's crazy. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So year goes on. I take him to a drum solo competition where he was like, by that point, I taught him all the social cues of being able to go make eye contact with somebody, shake their hand. You don't have to tell them your life story. They don't know you. Just play drums.
Yeah.
Like, here's your 3 facts about you. Instead of just going right to the real stuff.
Right.
So, he was very, very cordial. He got like 3rd place there, which was super, super cool. And then he was known like, I had a room for him when he had some really aggressive moments. And when he would be getting that aggressive, I had to deal with the teachers. They could text me, call me. He'd come down to my room and go in this like back room closet thing with a drum, this really, really old drum set in it. And he could go back there and bang and calm himself down. And then he'd come out and he was good to go. And then like I had with the Grammy Music Education 19 videos, I interviewed him. I was like, all right, come into school wearing your best for this interview. He comes into school wearing a red vest, a red bulletproof vest as his. And I was like, you know what? We're doing it. I'm putting you on the tape. Let's go. I was like, what do you want to talk about? He's like, how about when I got suspended and I got those papers, I could come back and play. And I was like, okay, all right, great. Let's go on in the video. Like, and it was because like, I'm not going to sugarcoat like,
it's real.
I'm not going to put the best.
Yeah.
It's real. Like he graduated. He graduated, which was super, super exciting. And mother, like I contacted his mother and like I went over and at least I got to say hi to him and he was like super, super excited about it. So I had a student this year, it was his 5th year. He was a 5th year senior. And to get him the motivation to just finish, like it's worth it just to finish. And how many conversations I had to call him particularly over and over and over and over, probably 30 times until he got up to go get his diploma and his graduation gown. He was like, it's not important. It's not important. I was like, this is your one time you're getting this. You're getting up and you're going. I was like, don't you make me drive over there and I will honk my horn until you get up. He was like, okay, miss. And then I was like, okay. Like, I was like, I told these people you're on the way. Like, because they only had certain days they could pick up their stuff. He's the last one to get stuff. And I was like, and then he took pictures of his cap and gown. I was like, aren't you excited that you have this now? He's like, yeah. It's like, don't be ashamed. Like, you graduated. Who cares?
Right.
Like, own it.
Yeah, right. So I want to ask you, when you were going through college, did you have an idea in your head after learning all the different teaching methods and all the courses? Did you have an idea in your head of the type of teacher you wanted to be? Or you probably didn't even know where you're going to end up yet, right? But did you just kind of learn as you went when you met your students where they were at? Did you realize quickly, like, my idea of what I was going to do, I need to shift it to meet the kids where they're at based on the kids I'm teaching, especially in an urban setting?
Yes, because yes and no. So in my first, like when I graduated, I was up in Boston.
Okay.
And I mean, Berklee is not a contemporary school anyway. So I was getting all sorts of crazy ideas and ways to manipulate things together. In our education with Dr. Cecil Adderley and Libby Allison, they really let us create in the classroom. Like, we had a whole brain class where we just talked about the brain and child brain and how my professor, like, she had a story for us where she was a female teacher in the 1970s thrown into an urban school with nothing in the classroom. So her and the kids made a rock band, and we're like, what? They went outside, found rocks, painted them, and they went outside in a circle and did rhythm stuff with their rock band. And I was like, like, that got me thinking. I still remember that story in the classroom, and I was like, see, she was like, okay, problem solve, what can I do? So I always kind of took that model. My first teaching job in Randolph, Massachusetts, I think my scariest thing was I could not play piano very well. I was like, oh God, I've got to practice, because I could play some chords and stuff, but I wasn't that good. So I definitely practiced. I was right at the level with the kids. And I did a lot of Beatles stuff that year because I thought I could, and I did. I tied a lot of art and some different things, like some classical stuff in the Beatles, both first and second semester, because I had different kids first semester than second semester. Okay. So we dived into what did it mean to be a boy band at that time. And so I kind of taught off of that popular music to kind of segue down. Just because I really liked the Beatles. Like, I want them to take something away from the class, and I can throw in some of the composers with the Beatles. And that's kind of how I first started formulating this classical with other genres. Because I always believed in it. Because, like, I was in a Led Zeppelin tribute band at Berklee College of Music playing French horn. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. It's like, we got the classical instruments, like we got the rock. And then I went to several shows where they were doing lots of innovative things at the time, mixing genres together. And I think just being exposed to all that really, got my wheels going. And then, then I went to Texas, and then I was like, ooh, I'm arranging all the time. And then I just kept on, like, my bell arrangements for Northwood, like we did Smells Like Teen Spirit. So it's not only hip hop stuff. Like we did Smells Like Teen Spirit, Nirvana on the Orff bells.
Love it.
Awesome. And then
how fun. Yeah.
It was super cool. They're on my YouTube page.
Okay.
Under Bells Rock, and like there's Aerosmith Dream On. Always teaching kids different genres, because I mean, I like all the genres and different genres, and I listen to what they tell me. What's going on? I remember at the first school, I had an argument with a student, and we brought it after school because I was not, I was ready. So we talked about, the evolution of hip hop and like the four corners of hip hop, I guess you would call it, the four elements of hip hop. And she was talking about like Chris Brown and Rihanna, and at that time they were together, and there was a big tumultuous thing. And I was like, do you think like I'm like really getting in deep. I was like, why do you like Chris Brown so much if he's negative towards Rihanna? And she's like, I like Chris Brown's music. Rihanna deserved it. And when she said Rihanna deserved it,
oh my gosh,
that was a point that I was like, okay, I am not getting this. Like, because I'm not getting where she's coming from. And I was like, you know what? We're going to have this conversation later. I was like, because I need to know and understand why you think that. I was like, I don't think you should ever think that, blah, 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 and gave my opinion. And this was not in class. It was just her and I after school. And because I was like, I really wanted to know, and I was invested to understand where she was coming from. And then she didn't have anything really to back it up at that point. And I was like, I want you to go home and think about the reasons that you're saying this. So she came back to school and she was like, no, I was thinking about it, miss. I don't think it is right that he did that and, you know, he hit her. And I was like, yeah. I was like, how did you come to that conclusion? And so that moment of teaching in my first year, I was like, okay, I see a little bit of what I need to do and what I can do. And like, the influence I can have on just perception of change and perception of how a student is viewing something.
That's good.
And that could be, and then I could translate that over into how they're viewing classical music, how they're viewing, you know, hip hop. How can they sell, like, and that it started off from this like little conversation of like, oh, okay, I'm listening, I'm hearing, I'm listening and learning, because if we stop learning, what are we doing? We're teachers. We need to always be learning. So I think this is a very big learning time. We have to do something. We don't want to lose traditional band models. I mean, I play in an orchestra still. So sometimes when, you know, they're like, oh, you only do modern bands. Like, well, actually, I still play in an orchestra. I still play my French horn. I have had surgery on both wrists, and now I'm going to have to have surgery on my elbow for playing the French horn. So musicians, definitely we have our ailments, I guess, but I definitely come with that different perspective because I love hip hop and I love going to hip hop concerts, which, you know, concerts, that's a whole nother, I don't even know what's going to happen. But being able to meld everything together is something I love to do. It's fun for me.
Well, and I love how you talked about the first 3 months, getting to know the students. And when I speak to music teachers and they're telling me they struggle with classroom management, it's just not anything. And I taught in one of the highest poverty schools in my district where the kids in an urban setting, but they were bussed in from like the north of the city to this school. And like you said, I love how you said the teachers walked around to see where they're coming from, because I wouldn't have known either. I went and was like, oh my goodness, like they were talking about drive-by shootings the night before and things. And that's when it kind of shifted my perspective too. I was like, instead of me trying to get them to learn the way I think they should, I have to meet these kids where they're at. And so what I was going to say is I feel like a lot of teachers who struggle with relationships with their students or classroom management is because they're not taking the time to get to know the kids. They're not really, like you said, getting to know them as people, not just as music teachers, but these kids need relationships, and they're not going to just trust you off the bat. I had one kid was like, are you Britney Spears? Another one was like, my mom said I don't have to listen to you because you're white. I heard it all. And I could have just been like, I'm done. This is out. But there had been such a huge transition. In fact, there hadn't been music for 7 years. I think they were just afraid to hire someone else. And so I was like, in my brain, I was like, I am determined to stick this out. I don't know how or when it's going to happen or when things are going to click, but I did it. And I'm so glad. And I feel like that's when a lot of the teachers run for the hills, is they're like, this is too hard. I can't do it. I can't connect with these kids. Yes, you can. You probably have to give it more time than you think you do, because they're not just going to trust you just because you show up. And that was my perspective. I was like, well, they're going to love it this because they haven't had music for 7 years. So they're just my fifth graders are going to just walk in and be like, oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you for being in there. That's not how it went at all.
They're going to be like, oh, you can believe us?
Exactly. Yeah. That's what
Their fear of abandonment, because a lot of the teachers can't cut it. So they think, and I had a high schooler straight tell me this, that they did this to 2 teachers in middle school. I was like mortified. I was like, oh my gosh, honeys. They didn't like the teacher because the teacher like came in with a lot of attitude towards them and was just like, do this.
Trying to just be tough.
Like they didn't even know this person. And super, super tough. And that they always could bully the teacher out, somebody that was like that, bully them out within 3 months of just all of the kids banding together to be bad. And they knew what they were doing was bad, but they didn't like that
especially
teacher.
the older ones.
They knew that they could do that. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I was like, that's so terrible. They're like, but they didn't even like us. They treated us terrible. And it's kind of like, I saw this thing where it's like, predominantly Black kids get called the human resource, white teachers call the human resource officers on Black students predominantly. And that's sad because I've seen it firsthand at a couple different things, and I've definitely been vocal about those things, and definitely wrote my things to the union, or wrote where my voice was heard, and I was not impacted, and I made sure that the students that were being talked about, or whatever the issue was, they were being represented correctly. And the kids know I'm fighting for them. So when they know I'm on their side, but if they have an idea, I'm gonna be like, all right, so maybe write a letter, let's see what we can do. But I'm also gonna advocate for them against adults that may, like, I firsthand see something happen. I'm gonna advocate for that kid. And a lot of adults don't do that. They will go with the other adult and laugh at the kid or whatever. But I'm like, this is a child. Like, we had a child, a kindergartner, on Mondays and Fridays. She was off kilter, like out of control. Whenever she threw a fit in my class, I didn't try to stop her. I was like, okay, can you go over there? And she would just like, just be so angry. And the other class, I'm like, all right, she's gonna come back when she's ready, da-da-da. And I would always play it off, like, and let her have her fit on Mondays and Fridays. And I brought that to a couple people's attention. I was like, she's so good. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. She's beautiful. She's with grandma. Like, she has a stable home, everything like that. And I was like, something's going on, friends. Like, kids just don't act like this.
Just random days of the week. Yeah.
They were just like, well, she's just bad. She just doesn't want to come to school. And I was like, I think there's more. I'm saying we need to check this out. And we ended up, now she's with grandma full time, and child's completely different. She was nervous to leave on Friday. She would cry to get on the bus. And this is a kindergartner. And even like in music teachers, we've kind of got that knowledge that we get to see these kids year after year, and we get to see their growth and see some of their personalities that the traditional, math teachers or whatever, that they're really diving into different things. And in music, we can actually take some time to have this conversation to, really see what's clicking with a student. Because even if you watch watching Coco. Oh my gosh, I watched Coco. I had never seen Coco. And the kids were like, this is like last week of school. And I was like, all right, let's watch Coco. I've heard you guys are begging for it. Yeah. So we watched it. And then I'm like, like, crying. And they're like, miss. And like another kid's crying. And I'm like, this is a sad movie, guys. And, and some of the kids, you could tell where their emotional level was. And that's something, like, when that kid was crying, I was like, come here, why are you crying? And he was like, oh, my grandma. And I was like, oh, like, and had that moment. And it was okay for her to be vulnerable, because everybody was okay with that. But that was it's just presenting that culture of the classroom. Yeah. And I mean, it's like I said, before, it doesn't happen overnight. And be firm. If you're going to say something in August, you better be doing it in September, October, and November to show your consistency.
Consistency is key. Yes,
consistency is absolutely crucial, because sometimes those students do not have that much consistency. And so when they know that they can come in a music class and you're going to give them a number to sit on the carpet or whatever your getting in the classroom procedure is. I definitely agree, like, definitely meeting students outside at whatever K to 12 is how to do it. And whatever procedure you have going in, but because you can always gauge kids outside, like who's off, what's going on, like who's pouting or whatever it may be. And then you can kind of pull them to a side, like as everybody's walking in, be like, hey, good. Or like I had an autistic student that I knew I was going to do a surprise that day. I knew I was going to do a surprise dance. And I was like, all right, he did not do well.
No, surprises. They don't do surprises. Yeah.
No, I was like, okay, I'm going to tell you a secret. This is exactly what's going to happen in this class. So I'd always tell him what was happening. And so I was like, it's a secret, so you cannot give it away. And so he would never give it away and always would just laugh hysterically when he knew, like I pushed the music button or whatever it was that we were doing. He would just light up and like laugh hysterically because he knew the little secret. And everyone's like, why do you give him secrets? I was like, special dude gets, and just play it out. Like it is what it is. Your kids, and if you make it feel different or look different for them, they're gonna follow suit. They are followers. They want to test you. They want to test boundaries. They want to. Even my best students, I gave a detention to her, and she literally lost her mind. And she was like, please take it away. And I was like, you kicked this girl.
Right?
Yeah,
it's not okay.
And she's like, what, miss? And it's just like, and when they make a mistake, they see that I have the same discipline policy for everybody. I don't care if you are my favorite or, because I don't care. Teachers have their favorites. We all do. We have our students that love us and love what we do and are super passionate about it.
And they're easy to teach. They just go with whatever you're doing. Yeah.
And, but I like my rough ones too. But kids that always are doing the right thing and teacher helper, like whatever, when they get in trouble and the other kids see that I follow the same, I'm like, no, well, great that you are super helpful, but that was not super helpful. So you get the same discipline, because kids notice that. And I've seen that in urban schools, well, in a lot of different schools that it's interesting. Like I do think teachers do pick on kids. I mean, I think that happens. And I think it's something that people don't want to talk about because it's definitely
just kind of always been done that way.
Yeah, it's just kind of always, exactly. And I think back on what my mother told me about her schooling, and like when she was in school and having a rough time, and teachers always, just calling her dumb and stuff like that when she was dyslexic, and didn't help and just exacerbated the problem and made her feel worse.
They just assume she just wasn't doing it. Yeah.
Yes. Teachers that make assumptions, we can't assume. Because we never know.
Yeah. So I've loved this conversation so much. So I want to know from you before we wrap up, I know we've talked about a million things, but when it comes to bringing hip hop into the elementary music classroom, or even forming relationships with students for elementary music teachers listening, do you have any closing thoughts on that? For maybe they're just overwhelmed and like, I want to do those things more, but I don't know how to get started.
Yes. I will say, if you are going to start a Beethoven project after you've given, you are consistent with your classroom management in the way that kids are coming into the classroom, the procedure and all that. After you've gotten all your procedure done and you have enticed them with this idea, you're going to have to be very patient, and it's not going to be perfect, and you're going to have to think on the fly a lot. So because with a activity like this, it is freedom. It's freedom for you too. And so you never know which way you're going to go, what kind of questions you're going to have. So you need to make sure that you're in depth with what you're about to talk. You can talk about Beethoven off the back of your hand and all his love letters, or, all the different fun things about him. And you can pick up those factoids really, really fast. Even if you have a cheat sheet on your computer that you need, who cares? Like, no one's judging you. And just making it fun. And if that's stickers, if that's throwing out what are those little bouncy balls, something like that. And always moving. If you see something's not working, hey, you know what? Let's get up, do a Just Dance break, and then you have 3 minutes to figure out, okay, how can I revamp this activity while I'm dancing around because they were off kilter. It's just being flexible and being patient with yourself and record yourself. Because like, even if you're like, okay guys, I'm gonna record in the background, like just be normal, they're gonna be a little bit more on task. But once they get normalized to the video, they'll be themselves. And so then you can really gauge and see where you're making mistakes as an educator, because I make mistakes every day I teach, I think. And like, I didn't really know until videoing like exactly some of my demeanor and some of my facial features of like, really, that's it. Like when I was watching myself teach first grade violins and my face of like worry, I was like, okay, I don't need to look so worried all the time.
You're like, oh gosh.
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh, friends, good job. So it's like, even just knowing those facial cues and being able to control that, and just watching if you're dismissing, like some of the stuff, I missed a kid raising their hand. I didn't answer a kid's question fully. And I was like, I thought I nailed today. So it's just, please video yourself, and don't be ashamed to watch it. I mean,
yeah. Well, let everybody know where they can connect with you online, because I know after this conversation, they're going to want to ask you more questions. And so be ready for that.
I like to talk. Instagram is at Miss Powers _music ed. YouTube, Miss Powers Music Ed. Facebook, Miss Powers Music Ed.
Okay.
I think all of them.
And I will include all that in the show notes.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. This conversation has been refreshing and just so needed, and I loved it. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. My grandma was over here.
Oh, hi, Grandma.
From the church, like, don't show me.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, girl. Appreciate it.
So much. I'm super glad.
Well, hey there. Thank you so much for listening into the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. There is an exclusive Facebook group just for listeners of this podcast and any elementary music teacher called the Elementary Music Teacher Community Facebook group. Come on over and join us there, where we have conversations around the podcast episodes and encourage each other each and every week. And also head to my website, thedomesticmusician.com. I have some free resources there that you can download to help you gain traction in your classroom today, as well as the blog and the membership site and all kinds of other goodies to help you keep going in your music teaching journey. I cannot wait to keep connecting with you and encouraging you and spurring you on in your journey of teaching elementary music. Hang in there, have an amazing week, and I will see you soon.